The international tests are finished, but there's more high stakes rugby as Champions Cup returns. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Okay, so Champions Cup is back for another season. For once, it's actually the same format as the previous year, so we don't have, to explain more complicated rule changes just for the sake of rule changes, the way this competition likes to have done in the past few years. Still not a brilliant, format in my opinion. Just for the lack of jeopardy, really, at the pool stages. But if you don't know, pool stages are 4 pools of 6 teams. The top 4 teams will progress to the round of 16. 5th place in each pool will drop down to the Challenge Cup, and then the last team in each pool will be eliminated from European competition. So, the vast majority of teams, 16 out of 24, will progress to the next stage. So again, very little jeopardy for the teams, and one of the main reasons I think why it doesn't hold kind of the status and the magic that the old Heineken Cup used to have, because in that one it was 5 pools of 4 teams, and top team went through, and then only 3 second place teams qualified for straight into the quarterfinals, and that meant that you had to be on it right from the start. You couldn't drop any games. We saw last year La Rochelle lost their first 2 games, but still managed to recover and qualify for the round of 16, and made it to the quarterfinal in the end, I think, where they lost to Leinster. But in the old format, that wouldn't have been possible. It would have been, after 2 losses, you would have known that they were out of the competition. So yeah, it basically horses for courses, whether you prefer the old way or the new way. I think a lot of people prefer the old way. But we're going to go down through, we're going to just quickly go through each of the pools, who's in the pool, etc. Then we'll go through the first round of games as well. So let's start with Pool 1. So we've got defending champion Stade at Toulonnais, or Toulousains, should I say there, or Toulouse, as we generally call them. Defending champions, the top 14 leaders at the moment as well. And when you think the 4 teams are going to go through, you probably think that they're definitely going to be one of those teams going through. Another team that should go through are Bordeaux. Had a really good run in the competition last year, especially through the pool stages. Currently sitting second in the top 14, and last year they made it to the quarterfinals where they lost narrowly to Harlequins, so would expect them to progress as well. Then we got the Hollywood Bet Sharks, wearing the jersey for them. Got to represent them, having won the Challenge Cup last year, and the only URC team to win a European trophy in the last few years as well. So I think that's enough to wear the jersey, but it's going to be a big step up for them compared to the Challenge Cup last year. But they were very poor in the URC last year. This year, doing a bit better. They are currently 6th in the URC after 7 rounds, but they've played 6 games. So potentially they could be up there in the top 4 if they win that game in hand. But that's not until during the Six Nations anyway. But yeah, it's be interesting to see how they go in this competition. Then we have Exeter Chiefs, who have been pretty consistent in this competition over the last few years, getting to the semi-finals, etc. Not so good last year, but they still made it a quarter-final, but got absolutely destroyed by Toulouse in that quarter-final, conceding 60-odd points to them. And yeah, not looking as good, but they did do a complete squad overhaul as well. And at the moment in the Premiership, they sit rock bottom of the Premiership, even below Newcastle, who've been absolutely abject for the last few seasons. So if you're looking for a team that may not progress, they're certainly going to be one of the ones you're thinking of there. And next time we have Leicester Tigers, who I think they made around the 16 last year, lost to Leinster. At the moment now, the 3rd in the Premiership, So, they should progress as well, you would imagine. It's going to be close, I think, when you look at it. You probably think Toulouse and Bordeaux will go through, and then it's two from the other four, really. But Leicester would probably fancy their chances. Then we have Ulster Rugby, another team who have had a lot of kind of upheaval in the last few years. Dan McFarland leaving, and under Richie Murphy, they're beginning to kind of find their style of play, but still nowhere near as consistent really as they need to be, or as they used to be. When McFarland was kind of had the backing of the dressing room. They were consistently near the top of the URC, not necessarily always producing in this competition, but it was their terrible form in this competition. That kind of was the catalyst, I think, to his departure anyway. But yeah, at the moment in the URC, they sit in 10th place, haven't been up there in the top 8. So again, up and down a bit. And, you don't really, in this pool stage, that's not something that you want, because if they lose one of the games at home just because they happen to be in a dip, then it makes it so difficult for them to recover and to qualify. So for me, they'd probably be one of the two teams that aren't going to make it into the round of 16, at least on current form. Onto Pool 2 then, top of the table, or at the moment at least, but it doesn't really matter. The first up is Leinster Rugby, who are top of the table in the URC, having started with 7 wins out of 7 and gotten bonus point wins in 6 of those 7 games as well. Beaten finalists last year, beaten finalists the last 3 years, and the big question I think for them this year is, can they manage their squad properly so that they can compete on 2 fronts, but also the players who play in this competition are actually battle hardened when it comes to those knockout stages, especially the final, because that's been the kind of the criticism of them, is that those players have been wrapped in cotton wool a little bit too much, and it has adversely affected their form in the URC towards the end of the season, and then also adversely affected their performances in this competition when it came to kind of the tight stuff. The fact that the first team never go down to South Africa and have to kind of face the real kind of trials and tribulations of being down there has been pointed out as one of the things that maybe they need to look at for this. We'll have to see how they do. Would expect them though to progress certainly from the pool stages, but then you can't really trust them at least you might expect to get to a semi-final or final, but it's about lifting the trophy really for them, and they haven't really shown that they've learned from the past. Getting to finals but not performing in the final is their problem. Next time we have Clermont Auvergne. So this is a team that live and breathe this competition, kind of really the template for La Rochelle in this competition as well. A team that put Europe kind of first without really having any pedigree in Europe, and La Rochelle managed to go on and lift the trophy a couple of times. Clermont would love to lift their first Champions Cup. I remember back in the days of the old Heineken Cup, where Clermont were one of the teams that would be there or thereabouts every year, especially when Munster were kind of winning their trophies as well. Clermont were on the hunt, same as Munster, trying to get that first win. It didn't happen for them, but I've always had a soft spot because of it. That they, one of the few French teams that never sent a second team to an away game. Always fighting to the last breath, and you got to give them props for that. And, I think they're returning to the competition this year. I don't remember them being in it last year. They could have been, but if they did, they certainly didn't have any impact. Then we have Stade La Rochelle. Didn't win the competition last year, but did win it the 2 seasons before that. And, they lost to Leinster in the quarterfinals and lost pretty heavily in that one. But I think, judging by Leinster's performances in semi-final that just about won, and then a final that they lost. Maybe that was Leinster's peak for last season as well. So these two, facing off again in the pool stages, but you would expect really both of them to progress. Then we have Bristol Bears. They're under Pat Lam, former Connacht head coach, and they're going to produce some exciting rugby. And you look at the pool and you think, oh, they've got a chance really to get through. They're riding high in the Premiership as well. Like they're joint, kind of second to Bath, but only on points difference because they've got the same amount of match points, 29 each there. So coming in on some very good form, and if they get a bit of momentum, you can absolutely see them making the final four. But there's some other big teams, the final 16. I mean the top four of this pool. But some other big teams in here as well. You got Benetton Rugby there as well, who last year real revelation in the URC. This year not doing as well. Very up and down this year, and at the moment, they're sitting down in 12th place in the league. Just 2 wins so far this season. I think at this point last year they were maybe second or third in the URC, so certainly not coming in on anywhere near the form that they were before. They've got a decent squad. It just feels like it's the core of the Italian team, and it feels like both squads as a whole are a little bit down on confidence, and a win or two in this competition really could help them to get that back, and they'd have the potential, I think, to go to maybe a quarterfinal or something, but they got to produce their best rugby in every round, and we're not seeing that at the moment. So maybe they're going to be certainly looking at who else is in the pool, one of the candidates to either drop down to the Challenge Cup or to be eliminated. And then the final team in Pool 2 is Bath Rugby, who sit at the top of the Premiership at the moment. In recent years, no real pedigree in this competition, but the fact that they're top of the Premiership themselves and Bristol probably looking, would expect to be thereabouts to make the last 16 as well. But when we look at it, Benetton, I think at the moment would be one of the teams that say be eliminated. But then of the other 5, it's hard to pick who, exactly who the 4 are going to be. I think Leinster and La Rochelle are probably going to be there. And then it's 2 from Clermont Auvergne, Bristol and Bath then to go through, I think. Next, then we have Pool 3. So you got Northampton Saints, Premiership champions, lost narrowly in the semi-final against Leinster. Really good comeback from them, and almost did enough, to actually cause a massive upset last year at Croke Park, or was the Aviva? I can't remember actually. But whichever one it was, very close from them. They're, what was it, 20 points to 17 or something, and they were well out. It looked like Leinster were cruising, and then suddenly Northampton just clawed their way back, showed some great, grit to be able to do that. But at the moment this year, not doing that great, down in 8th place in the Premiership, and but they do have an affinity with this competition, and that might be enough to get them out of the pool. And you look at the pool, and there's some big names in this pool, but not many of them actually performing very, very well in terms of history of this competition. Northampton, previous champions, not doing all that well. Munster then, next one up, not doing that great either. Haven't been brilliant in Europe in the past few years. At the moment, down in 11th place in the URC. Graham Roundtree has left. Their forwards coach, I think, left there 2 weeks ago as well. And just lots of upheaval for them to contend with. And, you wonder, we know Munster's kind of has a very romantic link with this competition, but you wonder, can they actually produce? And honestly, I want to see Munster progress, but I'm very fearful that they'll be one of the teams that you're actually going to miss out on. the round of 16. Then we have the other URC team, Vodacom Bulls. So Bulls beating finalists in the URC final last year, when they were the favourites against Glasgow. Twice have been in the final of the competition as well. Made the quarterfinals last year of this competition, and very strange decision from them really to send a weakened side over to the Northampton Saints, and got absolutely hammered because of it, and deservedly so as well. Hopefully they've learned from that, because I think the fact that the Sharks lifted the Challenge Cup last year, and that was a big deal, that I think now we're going to see the South African teams taking Europe a little bit more seriously this year. So I don't think we'll see the same thing. I could be proved wrong from them. And, especially the fact that they still didn't lift the URC last year either. So, not brilliant in terms of what happened. And I think as well, I could be wrong, but I think they were basically, they decided to play a weakened team, and then because they were playing Munster the week after. I think they might have even lost to Munster in that game. I can't remember, but it certainly didn't end with them lifting the URC trophy at the end of the season. And at the moment though, doing really well in the URC, currently in third place, 3 points behind defending champions Glasgow, but with a game in hand as well. So potentially, they could be up there in the top two of that. And yeah, I expect them to progress from the pool, but whether or not they're going to take the knockout stages seriously or not is another story. Then we got Stade Francais. They're in fourth place, so a team who have been kind of like they kind of either like they're thereabouts is kind of the wrong word, but they're on the cusp really of either making the last 16 or are being dropping down or being eliminated on form from the last couple of years. They haven't really been a force in this competition, and again they could be another team that could be there in fifth or sixth place come the end, unless again you get one result that is not unexpected, and suddenly the whole complexion of the pool changes as well. So but at the moment, I'd say that they're probably one of the teams, along with Munster, who may be eliminated in the pool stages. Next time we have Saracens, so former multiple champions of this competition, one of the strongest teams in England over the last few years, but haven't really produced in this competition in the last few years either. The last kind of 2 or 3 seasons, and at the moment they're in fourth place in the Premiership, so in decent form, not amazing form, but certainly in decent form, and you would expect them to progress from here. But again, a team that could be caught off guard a little bit if there is a surprise package in the pool. The final team then in the pool is Castres Olympique, and at the moment in the top 14, they are in 7th place, so not in brilliant form from them. They kind of like won 6, lost 5, but similar to La Rochelle really in terms of that as well. So not in terrible form, but certainly not riding high either. And again, a team that don't really have huge history in this competition, and haven't done brilliantly in recent seasons in the competition either. And you look at that and you think, okay, they're another one who they've got to get a decent result for themselves to be able to progress from there. So for me, I think it's going to be Northampton, the Bulls and Saracens progressing, and then one of Munster, Stade Francais and Castres to join them. But again, one or two results can turn the pool completely on its head. Then the final pool, pool 4. So we got Glasgow Warriors, URC, defending champions, the second place in the URC as well. But again, no real pedigree in this competition. And I think, was it last year? It was a pool exit or something for them. I don't remember them getting round of 16, right? They lost to Quins. Yeah, they did get out of the pool, but they lost to Quins in the round of 16. So yeah, you'd expect, the fact that they are URC champions, the fact that they have, a very quality squad as well, that they'll be aiming for at least quarterfinal this year, and being able to, the way teams kind of get to the point of being able to win this competition, it's rare that you have a team that just comes out of nowhere and are suddenly the champions. Often it's kind of getting to those quarterfinals and then semi-finals, year after year, and then you get to your final, and then you have to make the most of it when you get there, because you don't know if you're going to get to another one, or at least if it's going to be a long time before you get to another one. So Glasgow, I think they're going to progress from the pool, but a lot of teams, certainly based on past performance, will see them as a nice draw for the knockout stages. Whether that proves to be true or not is another thing, because these guys have to have more confidence now that they've lifted the trophy. Next time we have Racing 92. So Stuart Lancaster over there at Racing hasn't really done what obviously they were expecting from him. I think they wanted him to make them a real force in this competition and in the top 14. Hasn't really happened, honestly, for them. And at the moment they're 8th in the top 14. And again, last year, no real progress in this competition. I think they were eliminated in the round of 16. I think they lost heavily to Toulouse there. And they've had some memorable games against Quins, who are in the same pool again. So that might be kind of the height for them this year. We'll have to see, if they can progress. Then we have Sale Sharks there as well, English team. At the minute, they are in 6th place in 10-team Premiership, so not really riding high. And again, no real impact on the competition in recent years, and really throughout their history, haven't really been kind of one that people were thinking, they might lift the trophy. So maybe one of the teams that might be facing elimination after the pool stages. Then we got the Stormers, who have been a big force in the URC over the 3 seasons that they've been there. Up prior to this, inaugural winners of the URC. Then they lost to Munster in the final the year after, and produced a brilliant kind of run towards the end of the season to get into the playoffs again, but couldn't reach a third final on the trot. But no real impact on this competition in their debut season last year. For me, they would have been the team that I would have thought would have kind of produced something, but they did manage in the pool stage to beat La Rochelle, but then when they repeated in the round of 16, they had a 1-point loss against La Rochelle there. So definitely a team who'll be targeting a quarterfinal, I think, this year. And I don't think compared to the Bulls, if they get to a quarterfinal, I can't see them making the same decision that Bulls did last year. I think you'll see their strongest team, whether they're playing away or home. Next then we have Toulon. So Toulon, former champions back in kind of the Johnny Wilkinson days of this competition, and they used to be a big force at the at present not really that much. In a team where you might think, okay, well maybe they're going to be the ones that could be eliminated, because we've been seeing them, I think, in Challenge Cup and stuff in recent years. Currently though, fourth in the top 14, so certainly in better form than most of the other French teams, like just 4 of the French teams in this competition below them in the table at the minute. So certainly, again, get a win or two under the belts, and suddenly that pathway to the knockout stages becomes a lot clearer. Then we've got Harlequins, the team kind of rounding off this pool 4, and a team who produce some really good performances in this, some exciting games, but again, not a team that have really been at the cutting edge, in terms of being able to, lift the trophy or anything like that. But they were semi-finalists last year. That's something you absolutely have to give them credit for. Made their first semi-final last year, if I'm not mistaken. Lost to Toulouse, but some really good performances on the way to that loss. That quarterfinal against Bordeaux is a real classic for me in terms of this competition. 42 points to 41, they won that one, and it's always going to be an exciting game when they're around. And they also beat Glasgow as well in the round of 16, so took some decent scalps on the way to that semi-final. They'll want to try and get back there again this year as well, and I think they're going to be one of the ones who make it out of this pool. Looking at the pool, I'm thinking it's probably going to be Quins, Stormers and Glasgow, and maybe one from Racing, Sale and Toulon. But again, after round 1, results going a certain way, you might have to rethink that completely. Okay, so those are the pools. Now we're going to have a look at the fixtures for this weekend. So we start with the Friday games, and big game out of the bat, really. Off the bat, I just saw Bath there in my eye line. But Friday, 6th of December, it's an 8 o'clock kickoff. This is at the Rec. It's Bath versus La Rochelle. So you're talking the leaders of the Premiership versus La Rochelle, who've been monsters in this competition over the last few years. That's going to be a really exciting game. In terms of how I'm going to call it, I think it's going to be just about a La Rochelle win. I think La Rochelle haven't been in brilliant form in the top 14, and Bath probably will fancy their chances in that game. But I think La Rochelle in this competition, they kind of step things up a little bit, and they won't want to start with 2 defeats on the trot like they did last year either. So I'm going to go for maybe a narrow La Rochelle winning that one. The other, or actually that's the only Friday night game. Into Saturday then, Pool 2 game. So this is a 1 o'clock kickoff. It's in Stade Marcel Michelin, and it is Clermont Auvergne versus Benetton. And that one, I've got to say, it's going to be a home win. Again, Benetton, no real form in the URC to speak of this year. Clermont, fourth, I think, pretty sure it's fourth, third or fourth in the top 14. The third in the top 14. I think they're just going to have too much for Benetton, and it's going to be probably a comfortable home win in that one. Next then, another 1 o'clock kickoff. It's Hollywood Bet Sharks versus Exeter. So Sharks, and it's at Hollywood Bets Kings Park as well. Sharks, the Challenge Cup winners last year. Exeter, have been excellent in this competition over the last few years, especially prior to last season. but I'm going to go for a home win. I'm wearing the Sharks jersey. I can't wear the jersey. I'm back against them, so I think it's going to be a Sharks win in that one, given that Exeter struggling in the Premiership as well. Pool 3 game then, 3:15 kickoff at the Cinch Stadium, Franklin's Gardens. Northampton versus Castres. Northampton, Premiership champions. Very close to beating Leinster in that semi-final last year, and I've got to back them in this one. I think they're going to win that. Next, then we have Pool 4, another 3:15 kickoff. It's at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. It is the Stormers. Excuse me. The Stormers versus Toulon, and Stormers have not been doing all that well in the URC, and Toulon in 4th place in the top 14, but I think just the home advantage is going to be enough for Stormers, so I'm going to go for a Stormers win there. Next, then 5:15 kickoff in Thomond Park. It's Munster versus Stade Francais. You look at Munster and you look at that fixture and you think it should be a Munster win, no matter what kind of has been going on. But Munster, started off poorly in the Champions Cup last year and didn't really recover all that well from it either. But I guess I'm going to have to go with the heart on this one. I'm going to go for a Munster win. Pool 3 then, 5:15 kickoff at the StoneX Stadium. Saracens versus the Bulls. And yeah, I think if it was last year, I would have backed Saracens to win it. This year, I think Bulls, second in the URC, doing very well. Saracens, another team though that do kind of step up their performance in this competition. They're 4th in the Premiership, so they're not in terrible form. But I still think Bulls might just pull something off in that one, so I'm going to go for a sneaky Bulls win, but very tight, I think, on the scoreboard. Next then, 8 o'clock kickoff at the Scotstoun Stadium. Glasgow Warriors, defending URC champions, versus Dale Sharks. And, in this one, you would expect really Glasgow to win. And I think this would be a big test of whether they can actually step it up for the for the Champions Cup. This is a game they're expected to win. Let's see if they actually do it or not, or whether Sale can kind of disrupt them and pull off. If Sale win that game, Sale are probably through to through to the last 16, because you would expect them to win one of their 2 home games after that. So big game for both of those teams, I think, but I think it's going to be a Glasgow win. Then Pool 4, Racing versus Harlequins, 8 o'clock kickoff at the Stade Dominique Duvacher, something like that anyway. So look at this, the last few years, it's been an absolute joy to watch these two teams go up against each other. And it's hard to pick, but I think Quins might just sneak it. If Racing can actually win, though, suddenly they might start looking like a bit of a threat in that pool. But I think it's going to be a Harlequins win, but there's going to be plenty of tries. That's certainly one thing that I don't think I'll get wrong about that. Then Pool 1, so we're on to the Sunday games now. 1 o'clock kickoff, Stade Chaban Delmas, and it is Bordeaux Begley against Leicester Tigers. Bordeaux, amazing last year, played some brilliant rugby, just kind of cruised the pool stages, and then got caught against Quins in that epic game in the knockout stages. So, it's kind of a tough one, but I think I'm going to go for a home win in this one. If Leicester do pull off the win again, kind of like Sale, probably have 1 foot in the round of 16 already. And then Bordeaux, you'd be wondering, can they produce what they did last year again? Then Pool 1, 3:15 kickoff at the Stars, Stade Ernest Wallon, and is Toulouse versus Ulster, so the defending champions against an Ulster team, again, who said have been up and down all season, and for the last 2 seasons as well. I can only see a home win in that. I think it would be a massive win for Ulster if they pulled it off, but I don't think they will, so I'm going to go for Toulouse in that one. Then on to Pool 2. It is 5:30 kickoff at Ashton Gate. Bristol Bears versus Leinster Rugby. One of the games of the round for me, because you got Bristol there, joint top, well, like kind of technically second in the Premiership, but same amount of points as Bath, against Leinster, the leaders in the URC and beaten finalists last year as well. It'd be a huge scalp for the Bears to take, but I think Leinster are going to pull that one off. One thing about Leinster, though, is you look at this Leinster team at the core of the Ireland team, and the Ireland team didn't look all that great in November internationals. Looked a bit off it in terms of especially on attack. Bristol have been doing really well in their attack, so Leinster haven't hit the peak too much, even though they won 7 from 7 in the URC. So I think they're going to have to step up, but I think they will in this one, and I think it's going to be a Leinster win. Then that's the end then of because next is round 2, right? Yeah, so that's the end of the guide or preview for the first round. Let me know how you think your team is going to go down in the comments, and who's your early pick for finalists or even champions for this year.